November 8, 2006. Southern Beirut. At 0642 hours, Ibrahim Kareem leaves his fortified compound in Dahieh exactly as he does every Thursday. Same armored Mercedes, same 2 escort vehicles, same coastal road. Hezbollah believes the route is clean, checked, swept, familiar. But 400 meters away, inside an abandoned building, 6 people are staring through binoculars at a bottleneck near a broken bridge. One of them is holding a phone. The device isn't for calling, it's a trigger. 40 kilograms of Semtex are already in place. At 0647 hours, Kareem slows to 15 kilometers per hour, and Operation Silent Horizon begins. Ibrahim Kareem was not a public figure. He never gave speeches. He never appeared on television. His face appeared in no propaganda videos, on no wanted posters distributed by Western intelligence agencies. But inside Hezbollah's operational infrastructure, he was irreplaceable. Born in the Bekaa Valley in 1968, Kareem came of age during Israel's occupation of southern Lebanon. The formative moment came in 1993 when Israeli forces destroyed a weapons convoy he was traveling with near Jezin. Kareem survived by hiding under a culvert for 11 hours while attack helicopters circled overhead. He emerged with a singular obsession: how to move critical assets without creating signatures that aircraft could detect. By age 27, Kareem had designed the rotating convoy system that would become Hezbollah's logistical backbone. What made Kareem operationally valuable was precision without visibility. He never fired a rocket. He never planted a roadside bomb. Associates described him as methodical, never impulsive. He built systems, buried weapons caches with redundant access points, cash transfer networks using Hawala merchants with no digital footprint, personnel rotation schedules that avoided pattern creation. While Hezbollah's military commanders attracted Israeli drones and surveillance satellites, Kareem operated in the negative space between observation windows. By 2005, Kareem had become the organization's senior logistics coordinator. He was responsible for moving Iranian weapons shipments from Damascus to Beirut, then distributing them to forward positions in the south. He managed payroll delivery to fighters' families. He coordinated the rotation of commanders between safe houses. Israeli intelligence estimated that Kareem's networks touched 70% of Hezbollah's operational activity. Removing him wouldn't stop attacks. It would create systemic chaos that airstrikes never could. Intelligence services had tracked Kareem since 2001. Unit 8200, Israel's Signals Intelligence Division, collected fragments, metadata from phones used near his known locations, vehicle registration patterns, financial transaction timings. But fragments weren't actionable. Kareem understood Israeli surveillance doctrine better than most Israeli analysts. He avoided personal phones almost completely. When he did communicate electronically, he used handsets purchased that day and discarded within hours. He never stayed in one location more than 3 nights consecutively. His vehicles changed weekly. The breakthrough came not from Kareem himself, but from proximity. In March 2005, a woman Kareem had been seeing for 6 months made a call to her sister in Sidon. The conversation was routine. Discussion of a family wedding, complaints about Beirut traffic. But the metadata revealed something critical. The call originated from a cell tower cluster in Dahieh at 0638 hours on a Thursday morning. Another call came the following Thursday at 0641 hours from the same tower cluster. Then another. Over 14 weeks, the pattern solidified. Every Thursday between 0630 and 0650 hours, the same phone appeared in the same location. Israeli analysts didn't know whose phone it was initially. But when they cross-referenced the metadata with other surveillance streams, traffic camera footage showing convoy movements, drone thermal imaging of vehicle departures from known Hezbollah facilities, a picture emerged. The phone belonged to someone traveling with Kareem. When the phone moved, Kareem's convoy moved. The relationship gave Kareem's operational security a fatal vulnerability. He had eliminated his own electronic signature, but he couldn't eliminate another person's need to stay connected to family. By August 2005, Israeli intelligence concluded Kareem represented a Tier 1 logistics target. The assessment memo, filed under Operational Directive AL 2005-0847, stated the strategic value plainly. Subject enables weapons distribution infrastructure supporting 60 to 70% of Hezbollah offensive capability in southern sector. Neutralization would create supply disruption lasting estimated 4 to 8 months and force exposure of backup coordinators currently unidentified. The authorization to proceed came in September 2005. But authorization wasn't execution. Kareem lived in Dahieh, a Hezbollah-controlled neighborhood where Israeli operatives couldn't move freely. The area was one of the most heavily surveilled districts in Lebanon, not by Israel, but by Hezbollah itself. Security checkpoints monitored entry roads. Local residents reported strangers. Rooftop observers watched for surveillance drones. Any traditional approach would fail. Israeli military intelligence called this the systemic disruption strategy. The logic was straightforward. Target enabling infrastructure rather than operational commanders, creating cascading failures that airstrikes cannot achieve, while avoiding the martyrdom effect that comes from killing public leaders. Silent Horizon wasn't designed to stop one attack. It was designed to fracture a network. 3 obstacles made the operation nearly impossible. First, proximity. Kareem rarely left Dahieh, and when he did, his route varied. Planting surveillance assets near his compound would expose operatives to Hezbollah counterintelligence within days. Second, timing. Even with the Thursday morning pattern identified, traffic conditions, weather, and random security decisions could alter Kareem's departure by minutes or cancel the trip entirely. Any operation requiring precise timing faced uncontrollable variables. Third, attribution. If the operation appeared overtly Israeli, drone presence, airspace violation, intercepted communications, Hezbollah would retaliate, potentially triggering wider conflict. The strike needed to look like something else. Despite these challenges, planners identified an opportunity. Kareem's Thursday route followed the coastal highway south toward Sidon. The road passed through areas still scarred by Lebanon's civil war. Abandoned buildings, crumbling infrastructure, debris that had sat untouched for 15 years. More critically, the highway included a damaged bridge where vehicle flow compressed into a single lane and speed dropped below 20 kilometers per hour. Traffic modeling showed the bottleneck created a kill zone with predictable geometry. If Kareem could be confirmed in the vehicle at that exact location, the obstacles became manageable. Within 11 months, all elements would be in position. But first, the explosive device needed to be emplaced without triggering Hezbollah's counter-surveillance network. The human cost of intelligence work rarely appears in operational cables. During the setup phase of Silent Horizon, one operative experienced what Mossad psychologists call legend drift. The psychological dissolution when a false identity feels more real than the original. The operative, embedded as a construction supervisor for a European NGO rebuilding Beirut's infrastructure, had maintained cover for 19 months. He attended neighborhood council meetings. He hired local laborers. He knew their children's names. On September 12, 2006, 57 days before execution, he approved a work permit for a young man whose uncle would be killed in the blast. the operative wrote in his post-operation debrief. I shook his hand. He thanked me for the opportunity. I knew what was coming. Compartmentalization failed. The psychological assessment noted moderate dissociative symptoms, but cleared the operative for continued mission participation. The mission continued. Intercepted communications from October 2006 reveal Kareem discussing his daughter's university entrance exams with his brother. Analysts noted nothing operationally relevant. The conversation included a detail. Kareem planned to attend her graduation ceremony the following spring, joking that he would embarrass her by crying publicly. When the shaped charge detonated 4 weeks later, she was 17 years old. By November 7, 2006, the operation entered its execution phase. The final metadata intercept confirmed the Thursday morning pattern had held for 32 consecutive weeks. Hezbollah's security posture showed no elevation. Weather forecasts predicted clear conditions with eastern winds, ideal for sound dissipation. The window was 18 hours. The infrastructure for Silent Horizon was built in layers, each designed to function independently if other elements failed. Planning consumed 14 months. Execution would require 6 minutes. The team structure reflected Mossad's operational doctrine. Compartmentalized roles with minimal cross-contact. 6 operatives were divided into 3 functional pairs. The surveillance pair, embedded under NGO cover, had operated in Beirut since January 2005. Their legend, infrastructure assessment specialists evaluating post-war reconstruction needs, provided legitimate reason to photograph roads, document traffic patterns, and map abandoned buildings. The explosives pair entered Lebanon through Syria in August 2006, using Italian passports linked to a telecommunications contractor hired to upgrade cellular networks in southern Lebanon. Their cover allowed transport of technical equipment without triggering customs scrutiny. The extraction pair never entered Beirut at all. They operated from a speedboat registered to a Greek shipping company, maintaining position 3 kilometers off the Lebanese coast under the guise of marine survey work. None of the operatives knew the others' true identities. Communication occurred through dead drops, a chalk mark on a specific utility pole indicating package ready for collection, a folded newspaper left on a cafe table containing map coordinates written in lemon juice. If one pair was compromised, they couldn't expose the others because they didn't know who the others were. The explosive device was assembled on site over 6 days in early November. 40 kilograms of Semtex H, sourced from a Czech stockpile that went missing in 1999, were molded into a shaped charge configuration. The design was specific. Direct the blast laterally into a vehicle rather than upward into open air, maximizing kinetic force transfer while minimizing visible signature. The charge was encased in a fabricated concrete road barrier, weathered using a sulfuric acid wash to simulate 15 years of exposure to salt air and vehicle exhaust. The barrier measured 80 centimeters high, 40 centimeters wide, and weighed 93 kilograms, including the explosive core. The detonation mechanism was a modified Nokia 3310 handset, stripped to a single function. Incoming call triggers electrical circuit. Circuit activates blasting cap. Blasting cap ignites Semtex. Total time from cellular signal to detonation, 0.7 seconds. The phone's SIM card was purchased in Tripoli under a false identity and activated using a prepaid credit voucher sold to thousands of customers monthly. Tracing the number would lead to a dead end. The placement point was selected after 12 weeks of traffic modeling and surveillance photography. The coastal highway's damaged bridge forced vehicles into a single-lane bottleneck. Civil engineers had installed temporary concrete barriers to prevent cars from straying too close to the collapsed section. The barriers had sat unmoved for 11 years. Adding one more wouldn't attract attention. The kill zone offered ideal geometry. Vehicles decelerated to 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, compressed laterally within 3 meters of the barrier position, and remained in the impact zone for an average of 4 seconds. 4 seconds provided sufficient window for visual confirmation and detonation. The observation post was an abandoned apartment building 400 meters northeast of the blast site. The structure, gutted during the 1982 Israeli invasion, offered direct line of sight to the bottleneck and multiple exit routes. The surveillance pair established access in October by bribing a local property manager with $300, claiming they needed the space to store surveying equipment. The manager asked no questions. The building's 5th floor provided the optimal vantage point, high enough for unobstructed view, low enough for rapid evacuation. 2 Yamaha motorcycles were pre-positioned in an alley 200 meters from the observation post on November 7th at 2200 hours. The bikes, purchased used from a dealer in Dahieh, carried false registration plates cloned from vehicles known to be in impound lots. The speedboat, a 12-meter rigid hull inflatable designated as support vessel for marine research operations, waited offshore with engines running at idle from 0530 hours onward. The crew, 2 extraction specialists and 1 communications operator, monitored encrypted radio frequencies and maintained position using GPS coordinates accurate to within 2 meters. The planning consumed 11 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days. By November 8th, at 0500 hours, every element was positioned. The team had 16 hours before. The Thursday morning window closed. But first, Kareem had to leave his compound. November 8th, 2006, 0512 hours. Inside the observation post, 2 operatives sat in darkness. No lights, no electronics except binoculars and the Nokia handset. Outside, Beirut was waking slowly. Fishing boats motored out from the port, bakery ovens heated, street cleaners pushed debris into gutters. The surveillance pair had been in position since 0445 hours. They wore dark clothing, black cotton, nothing synthetic that might reflect light. One operative watched the approach road through Zeiss 10x 50 binoculars. The other held the phone. Neither spoke. Communication was tactile. A tap on the shoulder meant vehicle approaching. 2 taps meant wrong vehicle. Closed fist meant abort. At 0553 hours, the first vehicle appeared on the approach road. A white delivery van, civilian markings. 1 tap, wrong vehicle. The van passed. At 0608 hours, a black sedan appeared. Wrong profile. 2 taps. The wait extended. Every minute past 0630 hours decreased probability of execution. Hezbollah's security protocols sometimes delayed departures randomly. If Kareem's convoy didn't appear by 0700 hours, the window closed. The device would remain in place, too dangerous to retrieve. A permanent liability that could be discovered by accident and traced back through forensic analysis. At 0623 hours, a fishing trawler drifted closer to the extraction point than expected. 3 kilometers offshore, the speedboat crew watched through night vision optics. The trawler showed no threatening posture, just a civilian vessel dragging nets. But its presence created risk. If the blast attracted attention and Lebanese coastal patrol dispatched boats, the trawler's crew might observe the speedboat's high-speed departure and report the heading. The communications operator radioed a coded message to shore, weather degrading. The signal meant, complication detected. Advise abort if execution not imminent. Inside the observation post, the operatives didn't receive the message. Radio silence was absolute to avoid electronic signature. They continued watching. At 0631 hours, 3 vehicles departed Kareem's compound in Dahieh. The convoy was 9 minutes later than the average departure time calculated from 14 months of surveillance. The delay nearly scrubbed the operation. The lead vehicle was a black Mercedes S-Class sedan with armored panels and run-flat tires. 2 escort vehicles followed, BMW X5 SUVs, also armored, carrying 4 bodyguards each. The convoy moved south through Dahieh's narrow streets, following a route that had become routine through repetition. From the observation post, the operatives couldn't see the convoy yet. The approach road included 3 turns and 2 traffic signals between Dahieh and the coastal highway. Any of those points could delay or divert the route. A traffic accident, a security checkpoint, a decision by the lead driver to take an alternate road. At 06:37 hours, the convoy reached the coastal highway and turned south. The route was confirmed. At 06:41 hours, the lead vehicle appeared in the binocular field of view, still 800 meters from the kill zone. The operative watching through optics confirmed vehicle profile. Black Mercedes, correct model, correct configuration. But visual confirmation of the vehicle wasn't sufficient. The operation required confirmation that Kareem was inside. Hezbollah sometimes used decoy convoys, identical vehicles following identical routes with low-value passengers, designed to draw out assassination attempts and expose attacker positions. At 06:43 hours, sunlight angled across the highway at 17 degrees above the eastern horizon. The light reflected off the Mercedes windshield at a specific angle that briefly eliminated glare. The operative watching through binoculars saw the passenger compartment interior for 2 seconds. 1 occupant in the rear seat, right side. The facial profile matched Kareem's known photographs: angular jaw, close cropped beard, receding hairline. 1 tap on the shoulder. Target confirmed. The convoy was now 600 meters from the kill zone, traveling at approximately 50 kilometers per hour. Time to target, 43 seconds. At 06:44 hours, the operative holding the phone armed the circuit. The process was simple. Remove a plastic safety clip that prevented accidental dialing. The phone's screen remained dark. No sound, no light. Just a device waiting for an incoming signal. At 06:45 hours, the convoy was 300 meters from the bottleneck. The escort vehicles maintained tight formation, a security posture called compressed diamond, designed to prevent other vehicles from intercepting the convoy and to shield the principal vehicle from lateral attack. The irony wasn't lost on the planners. The formation that Hezbollah believed protected Kareem would actually enhance the blast's effectiveness by keeping all 3 vehicles within the shaped charge's impact radius. At 06:46 hours, the convoy began braking. The damaged bridge was visible ahead. Traffic barriers narrowed the highway to a single lane. The lead vehicle's brake lights illuminated. The operative watching through binoculars saw 1 complication. A white sedan, civilian driver, had entered the bottleneck ahead of the convoy and was moving slowly through the gap. If the sedan didn't clear the kill zone before the convoy entered, the blast would kill an uninvolved driver. The rules of engagement for Silent Horizon included civilian casualty avoidance, where tactically feasible. The operative's hand hovered over his partner's shoulder, ready to signal abort. The white sedan accelerated slightly and cleared the bottleneck. The road ahead of the convoy was empty. At 06:47 hours and 12 seconds, the Mercedes entered the kill zone. The vehicle slowed to approximately 15 kilometers per hour as the driver navigated the narrow gap. The escort vehicles compressed inward, exactly as traffic modeling had predicted. All 3 vehicles were now within 8 meters of the explosive charge, separated laterally by less than 3 meters. At 0647 hours and 15 seconds, the operative armed the circuit. No countdown, no confirmation tone. His hand moved to the phone's keypad. At 0647 hours and 18 seconds, the call was placed. The cellular network received the call request and routed it through a switching station in East Beirut. The signal traveled as radio waves at the speed of light, reaching the Nokia handset embedded in the concrete barrier in 0.03 seconds. The phone's receiver registered the incoming call and completed the circuit. Electrical current flowed from the phone's battery into the detonator. The blasting cap ignited. 40 kilograms of Semtex detonated at 8,500 meters per second. The shaped charge directed the explosion laterally into the convoy rather than upward into open air. The blast wave struck the Mercedes with kinetic force equivalent to a 105mm artillery shell at point-blank range. The armored panels, designed to resist small arms fire and fragmentation, couldn't withstand focused overpressure. The vehicle's frame folded inward. Windows imploded. The passenger compartment compressed by 40% in the first 0.2 seconds. The two escort vehicles absorbed secondary blast effects. The lead BMW lifted off its suspension and rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise before impacting the highway surface. The trailing BMW was pushed laterally into the concrete barrier on the opposite side of the road. Both vehicles' fuel tanks ruptured. Vaporized gasoline ignited from blast heat, creating secondary fireballs. Kareem and 8 bodyguards died instantly. The medical mechanism was rapid deceleration trauma and overpressure shock. Human tissue cannot survive the kinetic forces generated by high explosive detonation at close range. Death occurred before pain signals could travel from nerve endings to brain. The explosion created a sound wave measured at 178 decibels at the source point, audible 15 kilometers away. Residents in coastal neighborhoods reported hearing a sound like thunder but sharper, more violent. Windows cracked in buildings 200 meters from the blast site. Car alarms triggered across a half-kilometer radius. Inside the observation post, the operatives moved. No pause. No confirmation of effect. The execution sequence was scripted down to the second. 0647 hours and 30 seconds. Both operatives descended the stairwell to the building's ground floor. Time elapsed. 12 seconds. 0648 hours. They exited through the building's rear access and moved on foot to the motorcycle position. Time elapsed. 41 seconds. 0648 hours and 30 seconds. Motorcycles started. The engines were warm, preheated using timed electrical warmers to eliminate cold start delay. Time elapsed. 73 seconds. 0649 hours. Both motorcycles departed in opposite directions. One headed north toward Dahieh. The other headed east into the Chouf Mountains. Neither used the coastal highway. Time elapsed. 2 minutes, 12 seconds. By 0652 hours, both motorcycles were abandoned in pre-scouted locations. One in a shopping center parking garage, the other in a residential alley. The operatives continued on foot to separate safe houses. They would remain there for 36 hours before exfiltration. The motorcycles would be discovered days later, wiped clean of fingerprints, registered to false identities, offering no investigative leads. 3 kilometers offshore, the Dahieh speedboat crew heard the explosion as a dull thump carried across water. The communications operator confirmed via encrypted burst transmission to a relay station in Cyprus. Package delivered. The boat remained in position for 6 more minutes, monitoring Lebanese coastal patrol frequencies for signs of heightened alert. None came. At 0658 hours, the speedboat turned west and accelerated to 40 knots. Within 18 minutes, it crossed into international waters. Within 90 minutes, it reached a rendezvous point where the crew transferred to a larger vessel, and the speedboat was scuttled using preset demolition charges. The boat sank in 800 meters of water, taking all forensic evidence with it. Back at the blast site, the first civilian response came at 06:48 hours when a motorist approaching from the south saw smoke and stopped. The motorist assumed a traffic accident and called Lebanese emergency services. The call was logged at 06:49 hours. Hezbollah's response was faster. Security teams monitoring radio communications from Dahieh intercepted the emergency call and dispatched armed units at 06:50 hours. The first Hezbollah vehicle arrived at the blast site at 06:54 hours, 7 minutes after detonation. By 0700 hours, 30 armed personnel had cordoned the area, preventing Lebanese police and civilian bystanders from approaching. What they found was devastation beyond a normal traffic accident. The Mercedes was unrecognizable, a twisted mass of metal and carbon composite reduced to skeletal frame. The escort vehicles were burning. Human remains were scattered across a 40-meter radius. The shaped charge had vaporized the concrete barrier that housed it, leaving a crater 80 centimeters deep. Hezbollah investigators photographed the scene before Lebanese authorities could access it. They collected fragments, metal shards, wire remnants, electronic components fused by heat. Within 20 minutes, they understood this was an assassination, not an accident. The question was, who ordered it? By 0730 hours, Hezbollah leadership understood that Ibrahim Kareem was dead. By 0800 hours, they understood the method. Improvised explosive device, command detonated, professionally emplaced. By 0900 hours, they faced a paradox. The attack bore hallmarks of Israeli operational doctrine: precise timing, surgical targeting, minimal collateral damage. But there was no Israeli signature, no drone presence detected on radar, no airspace violation logged by Lebanese air defense, no intercepted communications, no human intelligence reports of Israeli operatives in the area. The forensic investigation found fragments of the Nokia handset used as a trigger, but the device had been purchased using identity documents that traced to a dead Syrian national. The SIM card was activated with a prepaid voucher bought at a newsstand in Tripoli by a customer the vendor couldn't describe. The Semtex residue matched Czech manufacture, but that particular production batch had been declared missing in 1999 and could have passed through a dozen black market channels. The concrete barrier that housed the device had been weathered to appear old, placed during a window when Lebanese road crews were legitimately installing traffic controls, and nobody could recall specifically who placed that particular barrier. Every investigative lead ended in smoke and administrative confusion, suggesting sophisticated operational security. But sophistication wasn't proof. Hezbollah's leadership understood that Israel was responsible. The denials from Tel Aviv were transparent to those in the intelligence field, carefully worded to avoid outright lies while maintaining plausible deniability. But transparency wasn't the point. Without proof, retaliation risked appearing irrational or disproportionate. Hezbollah issued a public statement attributing the explosion to unexploded ordnance from Lebanon's civil war. A plausible explanation, given that Beirut's roads still contained buried artillery shells and mines. Privately, they conducted an internal security review that lasted 6 months and resulted in 37 personnel reassignments and the execution of 2 individuals suspected of providing intelligence to Israel. Israel maintained absolute silence. No government official confirmed or denied involvement. No intelligence source leaked operational details to journalists. The operation remained compartmentalized within a classification level that prevented even most Mossad personnel from accessing the file. The denials were automatic and generic, the kind issued reflexively to any accusation of covert action. Strategically, the impact was immediate and measurable. Weapons transfers from Damascus to southern Lebanon slowed by an estimated 60% in the month following Kareem's death. Hezbollah's logistics network fractured into smaller, less efficient cells. New coordinators were installed, but none possessed Kareem's institutional memory or his understanding of Israeli surveillance patterns. What had been a streamlined system became fragmented and vulnerable to further interdiction. For Israeli intelligence, Silent Horizon achieved its primary objective: systemic disruption without escalation. The operation removed a critical node in Hezbollah's infrastructure while maintaining enough ambiguity to prevent automatic retaliation. It demonstrated that precision, patience, and deniability could achieve strategic effects that airstrikes and artillery barrages could not. The operation cost approximately $1.7 million in planning and execution, a fraction of the cost of military operations that would have achieved similar disruption with far greater political consequences. For Hezbollah, the operation created paranoia and forced adaptation. Convoy protocols changed immediately. Routes became randomized using algorithms designed to prevent pattern recognition. Personnel movements increased in frequency but decreased in predictability. Redundancy systems expanded. The shadow war adapted, as it always does. The unintended consequence was acceleration. Hezbollah's logistics infrastructure, forced to evolve under pressure, became more resilient. Within 18 months, weapons flow had returned to pre-operation levels using methods Israeli intelligence hadn't yet mapped. The operational victory was real, but temporary. The legacy of Silent Horizon wasn't the explosion itself or even the death of Ibrahim Kareem. It was the demonstration of a doctrine: that intelligence services operating in the gray space between peace and war could achieve strategic objectives through covert action that left no definitive proof, no clear escalation ladder, and no simple narrative for public consumption. But that legacy raises a question that has no clean answer. From one perspective, this was a legitimate military operation, targeting a combatant in an ongoing conflict. Kareem enabled weapons transfers that would be used to kill Israeli civilians and soldiers. Removing him was preventive action, surgical in execution, avoiding the civilian casualties that would have resulted from airstrikes on Hezbollah facilities. The operation was proportionate, targeted, and effective. From another perspective, this was an extrajudicial killing carried out in a sovereign nation without declaration of war, without legal process, and without accountability. Kareem was executed based on intelligence assessments and probability calculations made in secret by analysts he never faced. The operation occurred in a civilian area, risked bystander deaths, and violated every principle of transparent justice. The fact that it was sophisticated doesn't make it legal or moral. If intelligence services can decide life and death based on metadata patterns and predictive models, where does prevention end and assassination begin? If a logistics coordinator is a legitimate target because he enables future attacks, what about the engineers who design weapons systems? What about the financiers who fund operations? What about the politicians who provide rhetorical support? Where is the line, and who gets to draw it? The answer reveals more about your worldview than about Ibrahim Kareem or the operatives who killed him. Some believe that states have the right, even the duty, to protect their citizens through any means necessary when facing existential threats. Others believe that abandoning legal constraints in the name of security creates a world where power alone determines who lives and who dies. Silent horizon succeeded by every tactical and strategic measure intelligence services use to evaluate covert operations. Whether it should have been executed at all is a different question. What's your take on targeted elimination as a tool of state policy? If intelligence agencies can prove someone will enable future violence, does that justify killing them before they act? Or does that logic lead to a world where accusations replace trials and probability replaces proof? Drop your perspective in the comments. If this story made you reconsider what intelligence work actually costs, not in dollars, but in the space between law and necessity, hit that like button and share this with someone who thinks they understand how the shadow war actually works.